Hey there, Ryan Reynolds here. It's a new year, and you know what that means. No, not the diet. Resolutions. A way for us all to try and do a little bit better than we did last year. And my resolution, unlike big wireless, is to not be a raging and raise the price of wireless on you every chance I get. Give it a try at mintmobile.com/switch.
$45 upfront payment required, equivalent to $15 per month. New customers on first 3-month plan only. Taxes and fees extra. Speed slower above 40 gigabytes on unlimited. See mintmobile.com for details.
Hi, it's Dave here, and this is my wife, Kathy.
Hello.
This is the Cinemile. It's the podcast where we walk home from the movies. And Happy New Year
Happy
to
New Year.
you. And what we're doing today is we're not walking to the movies because we couldn't get to the movies. So we are going to instead talk about the biggest thing on TV at the moment, which is Squid Game Season 2, which we finished last night.
We binged, I think is the correct word for what we did.
Excuse me, yes. That's how they call it in these modern times. So we binged Squid Game Season 2. What we're going to do here is we're out for a walk. We're going to talk about it spoiler-free for a little bit, give you a sense of our thoughts. Then we're going to turn on to Spoiler Street and go deep into spoilers for Squid Game Season 2. So Kathy, I don't think we need to describe to people what Squid Game is at this stage, do we?
No, I don't think so.
Surely everybody knows what this is. But if you don't, it's a South Korean show about games in which 436, I think, people are recruited each year to who have debt issues and compete with each other in a series of children's games, deadly children's games, where people are offed one by one to win an increasing amount of prize money.
And it was such the cultural phenomenon, so we watched it along with everyone else. We watched season 1 during the pandemic, absolutely binged it, immediately forgot about it.
What a show.
It was such a good show though, and then that Halloween everyone was dressed up as Squid Game.
What I loved about Squid Game Season 1 was it just came out of the gates with all this incredible iconography.
It's visually stunning.
This music which you could boom, 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 and then these like the triangle, square, circle helmets and this that motif appearing everywhere, these bright colours, these MC Escher type stairways and crazy sets. It was just like, and it was, and all these characters, and it was just such a ball. I loved it.
It was so good, and then we do have to admit we kind of forgot about it, and then Netflix brought out a reality show of it, which we said, oh, that's going to be terrible, we've no interest in that. We'll turn it on for 10 minutes just to see what they've done with it. Flash forward a week, we had binged the entire thing, we couldn't turn it off. It was a great reality show.
It was an incredibly well constructed
Very
reality
well
show.
done.
Now, although it inherently conflicted with the central premise of Squid Game, in that it's kind of like they missed the point of this sort of black comedy, social satire, and just like, yeah, but what if we just did it for real?
But it was good though.
It was.
Yeah.
I cannot fault it. We loved it. Anyway.
And then we were aware that season 2 was coming back, and we rolled our eyes and scoffed and said, this is going to be terrible, we'll throw it on and just like see how bad it is, because
just felt
how
like
could they do
grab.
it again?
It just felt like an absolute cash grab. The story was done and they're sending him back in. It's just like, this seemed like completely creatively hollow and devoid, and I was not up for this, and I thought it was going to explode.
And I don't quite agree on the creative bankruptcy thing, because in fairness, if you make the biggest TV show that you've ever had, it's a global phenomenon, you'll spend time and you'll think about how can we turn this into a season 2.
History begs differently and shows you very differently. Big Little Lies season 2 as one example.
There's an inherent problem with Big Little Lies turning into season 2 though, is that was an end-to-end story. This is a kind of limitless world where you could just bring entirely new characters in and like have a completely interesting story again. But anyway, when we started watching it, by the end of episode 1 of season 2, we were completely hooked.
Oh yeah, I mean,
it's as good as it ever was.
The show's great. We were completely wrong.
Yeah.
Season 2 is fantastic.
It's really good.
It just, I don't know, I think it just managed to do all the Squid Gaminess from the first one. It just did it again, but enough of it was fresh and different. And I think even if it was just a complete retread, which it's not, I think they do sufficiently different stuff here. But all of the ingredients of the Squid Game sauce are so good.
Yeah.
It is just like TV you cannot look away from. It's gripping.
The world is so interesting as well that I would imagine that the opposite of what you're saying about creative bankruptcy. I'd say that the original creator and writer had a ton of ideas he never got to write into the show. Some of which we'll have seen now,
perhaps,
brimming
yeah.
through season 2. I do think we should get to spoilers on it though. Like, if you like Squid Game season 1 and you may have forgotten about it like we did, we both recommend you watch it season 2. If you didn't like Squid Game season 1, then don't watch Squid Game season 2.
Yeah, I think that's fair.
It's as easy
I think
as that.
What it does is, and this is a fine balance in the age of sequels, and Lego sequels, but it gives you all the things you want from a Squid Game, and then also iterates kind of just enough. Now, it also doesn't all work, and we'll talk about that momentarily, but for the most part, this is a big success of a season for me.
Yeah, great watch.
And we'll talk about the end, which you're all disappointed by.
Yeah,
we know.
we love the end. Okay,
but we'll talk about it in a
we
second.
will be back in a minute to talk about spoilers, and you may hear a quick ad.
Hi, Kush Jumbo here. My podcast Origins is where the biggest names in entertainment tell me the stories that made them who they are today. This week on Origins is KSI.
I did boxing as a joke, if that makes sense. So
No, continue.
Okay.
Did you and Tommy Fury become friends?
No. I would be sweating if I was like sitting next to another woman. I didn't know how to talk to females.
Listen to Origins with Kush Jumbo wherever you get your podcasts.
This episode is brought to you by Amazon. Sometimes the most painful part of getting sick is the getting better part. Waiting on hold for an appointment, sitting in crowded waiting rooms, standing in line at the pharmacy, that's painful. Amazon One Medical and Amazon Pharmacy remove those painful parts of getting better with things like 24/7 virtual visits and prescriptions delivered to your door. Thanks to Amazon Pharmacy and Amazon One Medical, healthcare just got less painful.
Okay, we're back. So full spoilers now for Squid Game Season 2 and Season 1, of course. And maybe minor spoilers for Squid Game The Challenge, because I swear to God the Season 2 references it.
I'm mixing them all up in my head.
Well, it references in that they put a mother and son in here, which was straight out of The Challenge.
It was how we're going to chat about this one is first we're just going to discuss the bit of like, which is the hardest thing the show had to do, I think, is how do you get them back in the games?
Yeah, in a way that felt
really tough.
organic.
Really tough.
Because actually, that was one of my biggest criticisms of the end of Season 1, where he walks off the plane and it was all like he goes through this whole hair dye thing, and then this show instantly undoes all that.
My biggest criticism of the end of Season 1 was his hair, but also I felt like, because they kind of realised they had such a hit on their hands, it felt tacked on to me, that scene. It really felt tacked on.
I agree.
But look, they've made up for it because we meet him, our beloved main character.
Jihyun.
He is super rich, but just spends his days in a motel, shooting mattresses, planning on getting back into the game for reasons I still don't understand.
Good question. I think his motive is he wants to bring these games down. He wants to end the games.
Yeah.
Right, that's his motive. And I think that's simple and clear enough an objective for me to get on board.
I mean, I'm here for it. I love that he pays all these men to go out every day and search the subway stations for the guy who plays that card game.
It's great crack.
Honestly, that first episode was thrilling, like totally unexpected. I love that they took 3 episodes for him to. He didn't get into the game till episode 3 because they had to build it up, you know. If he'd just gone straight in, it would have been really dull. And when he's kind of got his team together of every man in the city hunting around the subways and taking pictures and sharing them in their WhatsApp groups. When the 2 lads actually found
oh my God,
we screamed.
We screamed,
yeah. We really
we were like, what?
See him again.
I just felt, because they did a good job of selling the magnitude of this task.
Yeah.
That it had been going on for over a year. That it was like they had literally an office where they were briefing people every day. They had a whole system. I found all that really interesting and fascinating.
And Jihyun was like, it's in the next 2 weeks, the games are going to happen.
Yeah.
So
I'm going to throw a load of this extra cash that I have sitting around in the next room.
Yeah, he has it all in cash, which I don't think is a great idea because That's paper. So
I know,
if
yeah.
there's a fire, your entire fortune goes up in flames.
He doesn't care though. He doesn't seem to care about the money. Anyway,
Yeah,
so
but he still needs it for his deeds. So we kind of see it, and then we watch. They follow the bad guy. He's going into the park. He's taunting homeless people with scratch cards and
seemingly
food.
for no reason, unless he knew that they were following him and he was just doing a demonstration. Because I can't figure out what else was the purpose of that exercise.
I think he's just like an evil motherfucker. I don't know.
Well, it's just he seems to be the people that work for the Squid Game people. I don't know what to call them. They seem
put it on their LinkedIn profile.
They seem to be zealots. Like this guy is. They just have
love
bought
games.
into this philosophy. No, it's not about the game. Well, they do love games, clearly. But it's actually, they've just all bought into this zealotry, this religious philosophy that people are inherently greedy and we're going to go test them and they will consistently fail. And so
they only
he
test
seems,
gambling addicts with gambling games, which is so cruel.
I know, right?
It's like testing drug addicts by offering them drugs. Like, it's not a legitimate test.
But I gotta say, what I appreciated about season 2 is that they've geared, like, unlike Squid Game, the challenge, which is just like,
It's just a challenge.
here's a load of people earning money. It's a bit
Yeah.
Mr. Beast for my liking, but Squid Game's trying to say something, and it's squaring up for a brilliant, I think, finale. I hope, because this season brilliantly establishes our two polar opposite characters, Ji-hun and the Man in Black, with
Yeah.
these opposing moral dilemmas, much like they've extended that scene with the old man that Ji-hun had at the end of season 1,
Yeah.
where they're hoping that someone's going to help a homeless person. It's that extended, and you're watching Ji-hun experience the cynical side of humanity and watching these votes go one by one,
I know.
not in his favor. And I think that Lee Jung Jae, did I thought such a good job in this season of conveying that sinking feeling.
Yeah. He's
Over
like,
several episodes.
when he goes in, and this is what we love. So, like, if we just flash forward to where he actually, the Russian roulette scene in episode 1, iconic.
Oh, yeah, great.
Halloween party in episode 2, fine. He ends up in the limo and wakes up in the game. And then when he arrives in the game, he kind of realizes his tooth chip has been removed. Obviously.
Of course.
Like, what did he think?
Well, I love that this merry men band think they can take down this
stupid.
multi-billion-dollar organization that's
Yeah.
been running for seemingly, I don't know,
Forever,
decades.
since the beginning of time.
Yeah.
And then though, when he realizes, and they're totally doing this to fuck with him. Oh, at the end of every game, you can all vote, and if the majority chooses to
Yeah.
leave, you can leave.
I agree that I
So
feel
clever.
that they've introduced this clause just to fuck with Ji-hun.
Yeah.
You're right, and that's what I love about this show is the Man in Black the captain is basically in there testing and pushing
Yeah.
Ji-hun's buttons and seeing how far he'll
And
go.
not only is he pushing his buttons, he goes in and casts the final vote by button.
yeah, I love that.
Again, we screamed when we saw him, player 001.
The voting mechanism that the
So
show has
good.
introduced in this season was a stroke of genius.
Yeah, it was so
because
good.
it creates such tension. It was basically the movie Conclave over and over and over again, and that's a good thing.
Do you know what it did as well? They've a lot less games in this season, but like that replaced the need for some of the games because that took
I
up a lot
agree.
of space.
I agree.
But speaking of games, the first game they play is the kind of original entry game where you have the giant doll.
Red light, green light.
Red light, green light. But this time he's like, freeze, motherfuckers! He's screaming, he's telling them how to play. So like way more people live this time.
Predictably, they're all like, what are you talking about? You're crazy. We're not all going to die.
And we're not going to talk about all the characters here because there's way too many, but it was interesting of note that we once again are following a guard. But this time she recognises one of the players because she knows that he's in there because his daughter is really ill. So not everyone's in there for debts. Everyone's just in there, for gambling debts. But everyone's in there who needs money.
Her plot better pay off big time in season 3.
Yeah, she went
because
nowhere this season.
That was a real loose dangling thread. She disappeared for the past few episodes.
They've basically just done like, say, a Harry Potter or a Hunger Games. They've just split the final season into 2 halves.
Yeah.
Which I have no problem with.
I'm fine with that too, but I think the issue is when we'll just address it very quickly. I didn't know that was happening, and we, like many people, ended Ep 7 and we're like, Right, we'll just do one more tonight, and there's nothing there. So I understand everyone's frustration.
It's kind of like how they do Stranger Things as well, but again, they didn't call it
I think it's fine because we're getting it this year.
Yeah, they should have called it part 1. But anyway, we see her in the red light, green light, not shooting someone, which was interesting. And then the next game they played after that was...
So the next game was Six Legs.
Six
so
Legs.
That's where
is when we meet all our... This is essentially when we meet all our new characters.
Our team, yeah, and where teams are formed.
Yeah.
I thought this was a fantastic new addition.
Yeah.
This was like watching the Olympics, wasn't it? It was like the tension of watching that clock.
Oh my God, it was
and
so
watching
good.
each of them complete these games, and also just from cultural perspective, I wasn't familiar with any of
we
these.
don't know any. We've never heard of
these sort of typically
any of the games.
Korean sort of children's games. So it was just fascinating to see them.
And this was a whopper.
The one with the little dice things that we have to flip it. That was impossible.
And also, like, we basically got 5 games in one. One thing I want to point out, we're not going to go through all the new characters, but there is a character who is Hongju, and she's player 120, transgender woman.
Oh, she's a real standout.
We loved her. There's
Yeah.
been interesting backlash online because she's played by a cisgender male actor, but then the creator explained his decision saying, I wanted to authentically cast a trans actor, but when I researched in Korea, there are close to no actors that are openly trans, let alone openly gay, because unfortunately in the Korean society currently the LGBTQ community is marginalised and neglected.
Oh.
So that's just for reference. But we loved her anyway. She's absolute kick-ass. We might also mention the emergence of player 230 Thanos. Frankly, the world's most annoying character.
Let's talk about Thanos. No, I was for like 80% of the show, I was on board with Thanos because he was like so enjoyably over the top and kind of absurd, and just like he was a fun, silly villain. But I agree, there was a certain tipping point where it was like, just go away, Thanos.
When
his
he spoke
shtick
English,
became so annoying.
He's like, come on, brother. it just sounded like kids in Cork who have American accents because they watch too much YouTube. That's what Thanos sounded like.
It did. I wonder, did the actor phonetically learn those lines? Anyway.
I don't know. So the next game then after the 5-legged one, which was a massacre, by the way, is that freakishly, that Ferris wheel. Mingle. That was vicious,
terrifying. And this is the new, I would say red light green light was season 1's kind of most memeable thing, like the robot lady and the turnaround. This season's it's the carousel and that ring-a-ring music.
Oh my God.
Like
it was actually making me feel sick when I heard it.
And the way it was, like, they'd all have to do it again and again and again. So imagine this like, I thought it was so beautifully paced. These moments of like calm, eerie sort of calm, where they're all standing together waiting, like, for the dread that builds up in those moments, with this underscored by this creepy children's song. So I mean, this show has such a good grip on pace, on tone,
and like at the very end we were like, oh well, it has to end on 2 because there's too many of them and they just won't make the rooms. And like, to see that was kind of when the masked man unveiled himself a little bit and murdered someone.
Yes, and Ji-hun's friend, who I don't have his name to hand,
R.I.P.,
who gets sadly killed in the end, who I really came to
He's
like.
called Jung Bae,
thank you. He's a character who I found very annoying at the beginning and then really came to like and appreciate. I think the show did a good job of putting some tender moments in. I thought the scene, in particular, a scene that stands out to me is when the night where they're waiting for the attack, Ji-hun and was it Jung Bae?
Yeah.
Are talking and he's kind of teasing him a bit about falling asleep on the job, and you see for the first time, and he comments on it, Ji-hun,
he smiles,
returning to his old self,
because he's so intense and serious in the season. I mean, as you would be. So yeah, the Mingle game was truly horrific. Really dark stuff.
What a great premise.
It was so good.
And they pulled out so many great little threads, like people being pushed out of the way, people being kicked out of rooms, and the bit at the end where there's too many people in a room, and Man in Black just like
kills him. And
awful.
then again, we can't get into all the subplots, but like having a pregnant woman in there is like very
The mother and son, I
Disturbing.
really like.
Yeah, really.
I mean, I
like.
find the son very frustrating, like all of you, I'm sure. But
I really like them. And then before we get into the finale, just quick on the side note with Jun Ho, who is the copper, and his mate out in the boat.
Kill this plot. I hate it.
Cut it off.
Cut this off. It's
We
like
get it. The captain's not really bringing them to the island.
we called that ages ago.
But I mean, but I think anyone could have called it because we were like.
Because they were like, why are they giving this guy so much?
Why is this captain having
know, yeah.
scenes where he's like, I really want to help you find this island. That stuff. Though I really like Jun Ho, the character, and I think the actor who plays him is really good.
The police officer?
Yeah, I think he's really good, and I find I'm looking forward to a face-off between him and his brother.
I guess that. But the problem is, and here's, I think the show could have done without bringing him back, if I'm honest, because he was doing interesting stuff and necessary stuff to the plot in season 1, where he was our audience surrogate, where we were learning about the background of the games through him, and he's in the background, we're seeing how it all works. But here he feels like an absolute spare limb.
Yeah, because we already have we have a guard character. However, I really enjoyed when they met each other and teamed up.
Yes, but the problem is our man in black has now been positioned as the antagonist for Ji-hun. That's the face-off we want. So I just feel like the actual brother face-off is doesn't feel as compelling to me. And
sorry, but you know the other face-off is though.
Yeah.
The man in black has got 3 face-offs.
Who's the other one?
Because he's got Noel, the woman from the amusement park who's now the guard. She hates his guts too.
Yeah, but I'm not that interested in her plot. I don't really.
I know, but it's all going to accumulate though, I think, all forces, because basically now our main character is going to be back in the game with no power. These two will have to get him out of it because he's used his power up.
Exactly, and
He's shown his hand.
we can't really fully judge any of these plots because it does feel like we're only halfway through the story. But right now, it feels extraneous. It doesn't, and the other thing, my other issue I had with this season was while I did praise it just 2 moments ago for its tone and its great handle on it, I don't vibe with the comedy of this show often. Sometimes I think it's very funny, but then I don't know the way that a lot of the comic actors, and they do seem to be split down the line in Squid Game, you're either a dramatic actor delivering dramatic scenes, or you're a comic actor and you are like a buffoon over the top farcical, and there's nothing in between.
Yeah, I agree.
And I find the comedy sometimes to be a little too broad, and the performances can be a bit sort of gurning.
But also,
like
we're watching in a different language and we're reading subtitles, which I think a lot of comedy can get lost in translation. So like, I wouldn't
actually, that's one
get
thing.
overly hung up on it.
That's one thing I think, and I might be wrong, but I'd love to hear what everybody else thinks. I feel that often when you're watching something in another language through subtitles, it can disguise kind of bad dialogue and bad writing, because I found some of the writing in this to be incredibly clunky and expositional, but when it's delivered, when I'm just reading it doesn't seem so bad, but if I was hearing somebody have to say these words in my language, I think I would jar with it more. Does that make sense?
Yeah, but you just can't.
So I think the show gets away with it.
Yeah, it's just too hard to judge on translations. And finally, the last episode. So first of all, we were really glad we didn't realise we were watching the last episode, because what can happen to you when you're watching a finale if it's not wrapping up? This happens.
You panic.
A lot.
That happened with us in Day of the Jackal.
Yeah, you start thinking, wait, where is this going? Why? How many minutes are left? We had none of that. So I hope most of you watched it that same way, where we were just enjoying it. And bloody hell, it was so stressful that when it ended, I actually said to Dave, and we realised there was no more episodes, I was like, I'm glad, because I need a break from the show now. It was unbelievable.
It's a great season finale. It's incredibly exciting.
Yeah.
It was really well staged and choreographed.
It's like a war movie that they've made for one episode.
And again, that's what the show needed, was a bit of shake up and to do something different.
It really
they really went for it.
It was so funny, because he's like, we know what we need to do. We need to get all the guards' guns and attack them and end the games. And I'm like, well, no, pretty much most people here just want to win the money and leave. They don't really want to do whole mutiny.
I think the show gave us enough to justify this, because he's talking to the exes, and the exes,
the special games are about to happen.
The exes want to leave. They don't want to play anymore, and they are convinced now that they're going to be attacked by the Zeros.
Well, that's why the special games are so sinister, because it's like, lights down for the special games, and it's like, for
Well,
people
they
murdering
don't
each
say
other.
that, but
they
yeah,
say
yeah.
it to the
They say it to-
VIPs and the
yeah,
guards.
yeah.
And we know from last season, it's funny, as we watch this season, we only then remembered things that had happened before. Like, oh yeah, they all kill each other in their sleep. But I love the kind of Mission Impossible moment where he's saying to everyone, as soon as the lights go down, you get under your bed. Then we're going to grab the guards' guns. And he kind of goes through it all.
I love his plot.
It was all very good. But like at the end, when we get to, we can't go into it all, even though I'd love to spend an hour talking about it. His best friend dies in front of him. He thinks the masked man, he thinks his mate is dead.
Yeah.
Like, that was so cold when he shot the two lads and then he recorded one of them dying over the radio.
He's a badass villain, isn't he?
Because I warmed to him throughout the season.
Yeah.
Because he was acting nice, but then you remember, like, he shot his own brother.
He's such a good actor.
And
because,
he's such a good actor.
And I mean
yeah.
that both in the sense of the actor playing the character in Squid Game and the character acting in the Squid Game.
I mean, the character deserves an Oscar.
Yeah.
So then he comes down and he's basically like, look what you have wrought on your best friend. And now Ji Hung's going to get sent back into the game again. So, like, that's where we do need the cop character and the other guard character, because they totally can't get into it. But
Well,
the
they
other
surely
side
have to
plot,
get there sometime.
the side plot around all the organ donations and all that. Like, she
No, I
is
could have
pissed.
done without that as well.
No, I liked it because it was context for her. But
again-
it needs to come around. Like, it's just dangling at the moment, so we can't judge it.
Yeah.
But also, the masked man, it seems like he has put his foot down and said they weren't allowed to do that anymore. So I presume he's going to find out they've been doing it behind his back. There's loads to look forward to. I can't wait for season 3. The speculation online is coming in June. I mean, they've obviously shot it all back to back.
They did,
Because
yeah.
you ain't building sets
Confirmed.
like that and tearing them down.
No, they did shoot it back to back.
Yeah,
they
can't wait.
shot for 11 or 12 months. Can you imagine?
It's
and
incredible.
Ji Hun's in like how much of this?
I
Like
know.
Like Lee
Wow.
Jung Jae must be absolutely knackered.
Yeah, unbelievable. Like, that last episode alone must have taken, like, that is genuinely like movies in terms of how much action was happening in it. The sets
You
look
could
so
see the
good.
budget there. Yeah.
Yeah, it was unreal. Anyway, we better go. Thank you for listening, even though we didn't talk about a movie, but we have a guess that most of you watch this. And if
Back
you
to the cinema next week.
Back to the cinema next week. But if you want to hear us talking about more TV shows, Severance is back next week. One of our
Yes.
favourite shows ever. So we are going to record weekly episodes about Severance over on our Patreon, patreon.com/thecinema, where we do a ton of TV reviews, and then every month we also do retro movie reviews. So
Yes.
come over and say hi, and there's a 7-day free trial as well.
And if you're new here, thanks for joining. Come over and follow us, why don't you, on Instagram, Letterboxd, YouTube, Blue Sky, and say hi. We like to chat. You can also email us, thecinemile@gmail.com, or you can chat to us all the time, every day, along with our community, back at our Patreon page.
But love if you could leave us a review on Spotify or Apple Podcasts. It makes a huge difference. We read them all and we greatly appreciate them. Thank you.
Okay, bye. See you soon.
둥글게 둥글게